As we saw in the InDesign Essential Training title, whenever you have transparency in your documents, it has to get flattened somewhere along the line. In the best case scenario, you can export an unflattened PDF file, like PDF X4, and send that directly to a printer's RIP. And this is how the Adobe PDF print engine works, and it's great. The RIP does all the flattening, and we humans never have to think about it again. But, unfortunately, the vast majority of printers on the planet don't support this yet. So we're back to square one. It's gotta get flattened somewhere. If you're exporting an Acrobat 4 file, like PDF X1A or PDF X3, or maybe you're going directly to the print dialog box, let's choose our color printer. We'll go to the advanced pane. We see that we have to apply flattening here. Ordinarily, we'd just choose high resolution and be done with it. Or if you're making an EPS file out of InDesign, you have to apply transparency there, because all of these are situations where you need to flatten right from InDesign. And InDesign is doing the flattening. In the majority of cases, like I said, you choose the high resolution flattening, you're good to go. But some output providers will still want to create their own custom flattener presets for their particular output conditions. And there are even some good reasons for designers to sometimes make custom settings too. So how do you do that? I'll cancel out of here, and I'm going to go to the Edit menu and choose Transparency Flattener Presets. Here you see the 3 built-in presets, low, medium, and high, and you can't edit those, but you can create new presets based on those. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to select the one that I want to base a new one off of. I'll choose high resolution, click new, and I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say really high res. Now, you have several options here. The first option is the raster vector balance, and that tells InDesign how hard should you try before it gives up and it rasterizes something. So you have an option from raster to vector. Rasterizing means turning something into a bitmap, basically turning it into pixels. And in worst case scenarios, it will actually force things into pixels instead of keeping them as vectors, like type or complex lines. If this is set to 100, all the way to the right here, InDesign will basically try its hardest. So this is for best quality output, leave this set to 100. But in some situations, we might want to increase this up to like 2400. So in the odd case that it will convert line art or text to pixels in certain kinds of special effects, what resolution should it use? And that's what this 2400 would be set to. A gradient and mesh resolution, this is the resolution of things like drop shadows or glows, blurs and that kind of thing. That usually you don't even need 300 ppi. I'll leave that set there, but you might choose a lower resolution because there's no detail there, right? In a blur or a drop shadow, there's no detail that you're trying to keep. So in fact, I will change this. I'm going to lower this down to like 200. You typically don't need anything more than that for a blur. Now, we're not going to get into these right now. Let's go ahead and click OK and create a new one. And I'm going to create a new one that's just the opposite. I'm going to set this all the way down to rasters. So basically, rasterize everything. I'll call it turn it all to pixels. And this will turn everything to pixels at these resolutions. And this is probably too high. Our PDF would get way too big. But let's lower the resolution so that the whole thing gets turned to a giant pixel picture. And so that's another kind that we might want to create. And it warns us, are you sure you want to do this? This is going to be a really big file. Okay, that's fine. We'll click OK. Okay, let's create a third one. And this one is going to be something that will convert all the text to outlines. Now, in an earlier chapter, I mentioned that sometimes people want to convert everything in a whole document to outlines, all the text to outlines. And I talked about how it's not really a good idea to do that using the Create Outlines feature. But there is kind of a backdoor way to do it, kind of a sneaky way to do that, and that is to create a custom transparency flattener preset. So I'm going to create a new one here, and this is not going to be rasters. I'm going to set this all to vectors, and I'm going to convert all my text to outlines. Now, why would you want to convert text or strokes to outlines? In general, you might want to turn this on if certain parts of your page are getting darker than others. For example, if transparency is causing some of your text to get darker or some of your lines to get darker than other lines on the page or other text on the page, then you might want to convert all your text or all your strokes to outlines. That's usually not a problem with really high-resolution plate setters and so on, but it could be for low-res devices like a laser printer. That said, in this particular situation, I'm not going to convert my strokes to outlines. I'm just going to convert my text outlines because I want all the text to be converted to outlines for this trick. And I'm going to call this convert all text to outlines. You can call it anything you want. I'm going to beef this up just in case. We're going to maintain vectors whenever possible. And in fact, we're going to convert all our text outlines. I'll click OK, and we now have 3 transparency flattener presets that we can work with. So I'll click OK here to save that, and let's try them out. We can try it out. We can sort of do a test run inside the flattener preview panel here that we talked about in the last movie. And I can say, highlight all of the rasterized areas when we're using the really high-res preset that we made. And I'll click refresh, and we can see that nothing is getting rasterized. Hey, that's good. That's good. What if we use turn it all to pixels? And I click refresh. Whoa, everything is getting rasterized, right? Because that's exactly what we told this flattener preset to do. Let's try a different one. Let's say, what if we want convert all text to outlines? Okay, nothing's getting rasterized. But what if we're looking for not rasterized stuff, but what if we're looking for outlined text? There we go. Outlined text. This is getting outlined. That's getting outlined. Everything's getting outlined because that's exactly what we told this preset to do. Now, I'm going to point out one more thing having to do with flattener presets, and that is in the Pages panel. You can select a page or spread inside the Pages panel, and then from the flyout menu, choose Spread Flattening. And this is a way to override any kind of document-wide flattening that you're going to be applying. So let's say you're working on a document, you're trying to get it to print, and one page, one spread is just not printing, and you can't figure out why. You think it might have something to do with the flattening on the page. Well, in that case, you could choose none, ignore transparency, and basically it won't try and flatten it at all. It just sort of turns it off. So that's a good troubleshooting technique. Another thing you might do is apply a custom flattener to just this spread. So you could say, you know what, on this page, maybe for the whole document, we want really high quality, but on this spread, just to get it to print, because something's really complex about this page, we're going to knock it down a little bit, maybe to 75, and maybe lower the resolution a little bit just to see if it's going to print. So there's some things you can do on a per spread level in a troubleshooting situation. Ultimately, it's pretty rare that you need to worry about making a custom transparency flattener setting at all. But isn't it cool that the folks at Adobe opened this black box up to us and let us go in and tweak it in so many ways?